All right. Welcome back to another week. Thursday night shiur. All right, this week's parsha. We're going to have a break after this week's parsha for a while, not from the shiur, but from having mitzvahs in the actual parsha till it picks up again a little later in the Torah. But this week's parsha, we do have the first lav in the Torah, the lav of hanשה. So the chinuch starts with this mitzvah. Yishlach Yaakov yesh b'mitzvah leisaseh achas. Has one mitzvah leisaseh. Parshas v'yishlach. That says Horaz hanשה. The pasuk says Al came lo'yochel b'nei Yisrael hanשה. That's the only time in the Torah it says this. There's no repetition of the lav of lo'yochel b'nei Yisrael hanשה, and there's some significance to that. We'll get to in a second. The high lo'yochel.
It's the only one that there's no
repetition, but there's only one that has this special klal of a Gemara. We'll get to it in 1 second. High lo'yochel nemar al derech sipur. Al derech sipur. This lo'yochel loy nemar al derech sipur. Kloimer fnei shiur davar zeh ba'avdim noin habonim lech l'sogit. Elas haras Hashem yisparach shlo'yochlu. It's not telling you just a story. It happens to be the minhag of this family became not to eat the hanשה. It's telling you the Torah's lav that al came lo'yochlu b'nei Yisrael hanשה. Okay. The chinuch tells you mishrasha mitzvah. What is the idea behind this mitzvah? A very beautiful idea here, very important for Hanukkah, that it should be a remes for Klal Yisrael. She'afal pi sheyizlu tzaras rabbos. There will be painful times. There will be soivo many tzaras, the goliaths, miyad amim, miyad bnei Esau, from the nations and from the sons of Esau. Shei betuchim shlo yavdu. You should still be sheyiyu betuchim shlo yavdu. That the Klal Yisrael should still be betuach. They should know that they're never going to be destroyed. Though the pain will be there, but it will never destroy us. La'olam yamid zara mushmam. Their children will always be around. V'yaver lehem goyel v'yagolim yatzar. Eventually, the goyel is going to come and be goyel. V'zichum tamin in yitzeh, by constantly remembering the sin. They hamitzah shtil zikaret. Yamdu bin b'munasan. They will stand in their moon, and that faith will be tzidkasam loyal. V'remezehu. What is the hint? Fisha oisa malach shenucham im Yaakov. That malach that fought with Yaakov. Shabal b'kabbalah shesar shel Esav. We know we have a Messiah that was the Sarah shel Esav. It wasn't just any malach. Ratzel Yaakov min ha'olam hu v'zar v'le'yochlu. He wanted to destroy Yaakov. He wanted to actually ruin him and all his children. And all he could do was to be mitzayer him b'negias hayarech. And that's how it works throughout the Doros, that the children of Esau were able to be mitzayer Klal, so they were able to cause us pain. But just as he wanted to destroy us, but was only able to mitzayer us, so too with Doros we experience pain.
Malach come and help out?
I don't know. Good question.
Why specifically this mitzvah or this Rami?
Because that's the idea. What do you mean by I'm not sure. I don't know if I understand the question.
Like there's the significance of the fight, but from the actual mitzvah, what significance is there for generations? Is the gid?
Well, the symbolism of the fight is when we remember the gid is symbolic and reminds us of the fight and reminds us of this God's.
Matter of fact, skin too.
Rishonim al Torah say a little bit of a different pshat than the chinuch. The lashon they use is that it's a zecher of the nes. We don't need to get hanשה as a zecher of the nes that Yaakov was saved from this malach. Apparently, it was a nes. It wasn't simple, and as a zecher for the nes, we don't need to get hanša, which is very fascinating when you think about it. As a zecher lenes, we don't need to get hanša. Usually, a zecher lenes, we celebrate a zecher lenes, right? You have Hanukkah, you have parties on the zecher lenes. We don't not do something as a zecher lenes usually. Right? We have Yom Tovim. That's what we do. That's what Jews do. We eat.
We have a day of
right. We should have an awesome time just eating genuine filet mignon. You know, the goyish of filet mignon has get hanša in it, at least for Ashkenazim. We don't. We stay away from it. Don't be fooled by the pomegranate filet mignon. It's not the real thing. Because you're eating sausage too. I understand. Yeah, but that's the thing. Okay, yeah. Maybe we'll get that next week about Nikor, and it is. It really is. It's fine. No, he's right. It is. But in America, you don't find it's usually fake. There was a company, Grow and Behold, I think it was, or maybe that was selling meatball. Okay, maybe we'll get into it next week. Yeah.
The company is in Jersey.
It was Jersey who was doing it? Yeah.
Is there a sign on it that it's really the real thing?
I don't know. I didn't. No, people were asking about it at one point. Anyway, like I said, maybe we'll get to that next week. I don't plan on getting into that too much this week, that idea. But What was I say? Right, so that was the idea. We should have a party to eat. It's just an interesting thing to think about that we have a loisa say it's a zecher l'neis. I'm not sure what to do with it, but it is a fascinating thing. So the Gemara in Sanhedrin says an interesting klal. The Gemara says that any mitzvah that is any mitzvah that was nemra livnei noach. If it was said before Kabbalah Satorah, but it wasn't repeated at Kabbalah Satorah, so then the rule is that's only for Klal Yisrael. Then that's not an Isser for Bnei Noach. An Isser for Bnei Noach are only things that are said in one context before Kabbalah Satorah, and then we'll repeat it again in some other context.
Isser or pros also?
Pros also, mitzvahs also. I would think so. I think.
You said Mila. You went through the whole thing with Mila.
Right. Well, Mila would be right. Mila would be an example of that.
But I'm saying.
Yeah, I was in Peru. Where's Peru? You have to go. It's a long Gemara going through all the different examples. The Gemara basically comes out. It's one of those Gemaras that says a rule, and then it says it's only really negate in one thing. It doesn't have any practical application except to one mitzvah, which is the mitzvah Gid Hanasha. The only one Gid Hanasha that this rule applies to. The only one at the end of the day is that Gid Hanasha was said to before Kabbalah Satorah. And it wasn't repeated at Kabbalah Satorah. It was never repeated anywhere else in the Torah. And therefore you should know the klal is that's only for Bnei Yisrael, not Bnei Noach. Now the Bnei Yoina in the Gemara in Sanhedrin asks that what's the havamina here? Meaning it sounds like because of this klal, that's why it's only negeya for Klal Yisrael. Meaning if not for this klal, you would have said it's negeya maybe for Bnei Noach and Klal Yisrael maybe only for Bnei Noach. But because we have a klal of anything that's before Kabbalah Satorah, and it's not repeated at Kabbalah Satorah, so that's showing you that it's only for Klal Yisrael. It's the pasuk in the Torah says, "Al Kain lo Yaakov b'nei Yisrael." It's something that the children of Yaakov took on themselves. It says clearly that it's only for Bnei Yisrael. What's the havamina that it should apply to anyone else outside of Klal Yisrael? You need this rule to tell you not like that. You need some sort of chiddush to tell you that since it wasn't repeated at Sinai, therefore all along it was only for Klal Yisrael. It's clear in the pasuk. It's only for Klal Yisrael.
Great question.
Yehuda going to approve for the record. Fine. That's the Rabbi Yoda's question. He says a fascinating answer. He says that there were people in Mitzrayim who did not want to leave, who stayed alive and who lived in Mitzrayim and who had children, but they were Bnei Yisrael, they were Bnei Yaakov. And if not for this klal, the Isser of Gid Hanasha would have applied to them. If not for Al Kain lo Yaakov b'nei Yisrael, those people still living in Mitzrayim who stayed and who ended up living there.
They didn't die by.
I don't know. He just says people who stayed in Mitzrayim and had children.
Even though they weren't Jews, they were still Bnei Yaakov. I'm saying
That's his whole point, right? Since they were Bnei Yaakov, it would have applied to them. The Gemara is telling you, therefore, we're telling you there's a rule you should know that since it wasn't repeated at Har Sinai, it does not apply to them anymore, and their children do not have to be makbid on Gid Hanasha. It's a fascinating thing that he says. But then he says that Yeshavim, some say no, the Havmina would have been it was for Bnei Noach also. The pasuk Al Kain lo Yaakov b'nei Yisrael is telling you that's what right, matter of fact. But if not for this rule, it would have taka applied to Bnei Noach. Now, like either of the reasons behind the mitzvah, mamish would make no sense to apply to Bnei Noach. Meaning any other mitzvahs before you can understand it. Even Mila we discussed. Okay, Bnei Keturah are b'chlalit. There might be some sort of bris, but like as a zecher l'neis that happened to Yaakov Avinu that he was that it should apply to Bnei Noach makes no sense. And even the Chinuch's time that it's a simon for Klal Yisrael that will never be destroyed and Bnei Noach should do it. They have a havmin of Bnei Noach.
What happens is people start believing along that line and they believe it in Klal Yisrael until.
It's a family celebration.
And until Jesus, whatever, right? Now, so they're not Jewish, but they believe in that whole Jacob, whatever, and we don't do Gid Hanasha. No, it's because
Are they? But it's for Jews. This party. It's celebrating.
It's Bnei Yisrael.
It's like saying there's a havmina that Pesach would apply
to. Yisrael, right? They came from Bnei Yisrael. Why is that like
who?
Christians. Right, Jesus came from like
okay.
So they
yes,
came from
him himself, the man himself, but other people
did
it. But we don't know it. I mean, whatever.
Right, so so but those people.
That's not what we're talking about. We're not talking about those people who maybe might be. We're talking about guy who. When we say there's a havmina that guy, real guy.
Right, but I'm saying
like the most guy.
But I'm saying those people for generations, mother after mother were Christian like for years and years and years. Right.
That's not what he's talking about though.
But maybe.
Okay. Maybe.
Why not? Like for this, like,
it is because it's saying for Bnei Noach. Bnei Noach means Bnei Noach. It means the redneck who has no shaykhs, is never Jewish. Like Can't even say kishka.
Sure. So.
Anyway,
Sure.
okay.
But it can still be. It can still
Okay.
stand true.
Christians celebrate.
Yeah. Now moving on.
That. Yeah.
The Gemara in the Mishnah in Chulin says as follows. The Mishnah in Chulin says, "Noig b'tahara, ve'enu noig b'tmeya." Good? Okay, the Mishnah in Chulin says, "Noig b'tahara, ve'enu noig b'tmeya." The Isser of Gid Hanasha is only by an animal that's tar, that's kosher. It's not noig by an animal that is tamei, that is treif anyway. Because al kein lo yochel b'nei Yisrael is Gid Hanasha, they're not eating the Gid. Mashmoy says the rest of the animal is okay. And just a Gid, they're not eating. Rabbi Yehuda comes and this is a Mishnah. He says, "What do you mean? It was usher from Bnei Noach. Behema was still mutar. Behema Tamei. There weren't Behema Tameias yet. Behema Tamei only came about Akabos Satar. So from the fact that it was usher already for Bnei Yaakov, obviously it was already chal on all animals. We have no repetition of the. There's no new lav later, so it's the same lav that's continuing only for Klal Yisrael. So that lav, it's the same way it applied to all animals before Kabbalah Satar. It should continue applying. That's it. If Yehuda argues back, a very logical argument. The Chachamim come along and they say, it's a well-known line, B'Sinai Namar El Shenichtav M'Koyim. It was said at Sinai. It's written in the Torah in the place where it happened. But it was said at Sinai. What does that mean? Rashi learns that Rashi's understanding is B'Sinai Namar El Shenichtav M'Koyim was that it was never also for Bnei Yaakov. So there was no, Al-Kain Lo Yechel Bnei Yisrael is telling you what's going to happen. At Kabbalah Satar, there was never this thing that for Bnei Yaakov anyone before Kabbalah Satar was ever asur in it. It only became asur b'Sinai, and the Torah just gave you an insight into it then, and we left it there. Meaning that when the Gemara in Sanhedrin that we were just talking about says that it's only for Bnei Yisrael and not for Bnei Noach, what it means is not that it was said then, but it only applied to Bnei Yisrael. What we're saying is since it was not repeated at Har Sinai, it was really said at Har Sinai, because everything is from Har Sinai. The fact that the Torah didn't repeat it was really said there. It just recorded it earlier as part of the story.
That's everything then. Then it shouldn't be like a whole rule of what was said, and it wasn't.
Again, the rule is only for this one case. The rule in this case is the rule is to tell you this. That's essentially what the rule. The rule is telling you that even though the Torah said
no rule because it was said then second time, and
so the rule he is telling you is exactly that. That when something is said in the Torah earlier in Parshas Vayishlach and is not repeated, that means that's telling you that it was really said at Har Sinai. It was never said earlier. It just the Torah put it in its place in order that you should know where in the Torah it came up. But it was really said at Sinai. It was never said. It was never known earlier as to be allowed. That's how Rashi's understanding. The Rambam in Hilchos Malachim, and it's Perek Tes, the Rambam lists like the history of mitzvahs. Now, Adam Rishon had this many mitzvahs, then came along Noach, Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov. The Rambam says, what was Yaakov Mosif? Mosif Mariv, and his Mosif Gid Hanasha. That was where the mitzvahs to Yaakov was Mosif. The Rambam is clearly arguing with Rashi, saying Gid Hanasha was Yaakov at his time. He's telling you historically how it happened. That is that Rambam's halacha. He's telling you a history lesson that Yaakov was Mosif Gid Hanasha. Not like Rashi was saying it only happened later at Har Sinai. So how does the Rambam then learn? What does the Mishnah say? B'Sinai Namar L'Shenichtav M'Koyim. If you look at the Rambam in Pirush Mishnayos and Chulin, this is a very important Rambam. The Rambam says, philosophically and hashkafically, how we look at things, and especially these mitzvahs we've been talking about in the Torah, the Rambam says the reason why we keep all mitzvahs nowadays is because of Har Sinai. Moshe said everything at Har Sinai. All 613 are there, no matter where they happen to be found in the Torah, all 613 was said at Har Sinai, and that's why we nowadays are keeping mitzvahs are because of Har Sinai. Nothing to do with Avram that he was told Milah, nothing to do with Yaakov that he was told Gid Hanasha. It was said earlier, they had a mitzvah earlier, but why we nowadays keep it is because it was Moshe Rabbeinu said it over Har Sinai. And he says that's part of the Mishnah. B'Sinai Nemar L'Shenichtav M'Koyim, Yaakov Avinu did keep Gid Hanasha. But when Moshe Rabbeinu came along, now that we have a Kabbalah Torah, Moshe came along and he said that mitzvah, even though it's not recorded in the Torah, but he said everything at Har Sinai. That's why we do mitzvahs, because Moshe said Har Sinai, not because of Yaakov, that Yaakov stopped eating the Gid Hanasha, not because Avram Avinu that he did Bris Milah. We do mitzvahs because Moshe Rabbeinu said it at Har Sinai. No, Yaakov, that's Yaakov.
Oh, nothing, Avram didn't do Gid Hanasha.
No.
Okay.
I mean, he kept the whole Torah, so maybe he...
But the whole thing is because of Yaakov.
I understand, but he also, the whole Pesach is because we went out of Mitzrayim. He still kept Pesach, right?
Okay.
He's just saying that when we do mitzvahs nowadays, we do it because Moshe said Asina, and that applies to all the 613, and that's how he learns the Mishnah. It's not a history in terms of there was no mitzvah to Yaakov. Disagreement with Rashi, between Rambam and Rashi. Rashi is learning Yaakov Avinu never kept Gid HaNasha. His children never kept it. It only started at Sinai. Rambam is learning, no, Yaakov Avinu did keep it, but there's a new, now that we have Kabbalah Satorah, everything is renewed at Kabbalah Satorah. Now there's a new reason, and it has nothing to do with what went on earlier. It's a new mitzvah now, and that's why we keep it. And that's what the Rabbanan are responding to Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda is arguing and saying Gid HaNasha applies even to a Chazer, because Chazer was mutter before Matan Torah, and Gid HaNasha applied before Matan Torah. The Rabbanan are answering back like the Rambam, you're right, Gid HaNasha applied before Kabbalah Satorah, and you're right, it applied to Chazer before Kabbalah Satorah, but now we have a new mitzvah. And at the time of Kabbalah Satorah, it no longer applies to Chazer because you can't eat it anymore. It only applies to kosher animals.
When did Yaakov take this on? It happened, he took it on after...
According to the Rambam,
Yeah.
after this Ma'aseh. After the Ma'aseh, took it on and gave it over to his children. Okay. The Minchas Chinuch brings a sheet of the Rashba. Is there Gid HaNasha if you're involved in cannibalism? Are you over? Is that one of the Isurim you were over? What?
Why not? We do it.
Ain't no noig el between. No, we ain't no noig between. It's not. We're passing. Sorry, we passing Nalig Rebuta. We're passing like the Rabbanan. It's only by kosher animals Gid HaNasha. There is no Gid HaNasha by tummy animal. So
what's the question?
what's the why? What do you mean? Explain.
I'm saying so. It's,
Right.
I'm saying that the answer is it's not nothing by it.
Who says you can't eat a human?
Oh.
I thought if you have a choice between a human and a trait,
You're supposed to. Yeah, it's not so posh. You can't eat a human. Even it's a machlekes rishonim. The Rash was of the opinion of midiraisa. I mean, don't midiraisa. You're allowed. You can eat a human. I don't know which one. No, shit, that's not. It's like eating a plant. You're a vegan if you eat a human like that.
It's like eating the baby that's in the cow. You just rip off the leg and eat it.
What's that?
A little bit, I guess, but it's a totally different lumdus. But yeah, we'll get to the Ben Pakur in a second.
So is it Gid HaNasha by human?
So the Rashba says it's mutter to eat a human. So there's Gid HaNasha on. There is an Isser Gid HaNasha on humans. So it's mutter to eat them. That's as far as the Rashba. Comes Minchas Chinuch, it says that the Rambam holds it's usher to eat humans. The Rambam holds it's an Isser essay to eat a human.
From where?
It comes from one of the psukim in Parshas Noach or something. I'm not sure. But the Rambam holds that there is an Isser to eat a human being, and I say not allowed. So Zok the Minchas Chinuch, the Rambam.
We're getting like a mitzvah continuously for not.
Yeah, no, it doesn't work. not. Yeah, an Isra essay or Yisurim essay that you're not constantly getting mitzvahs. Yeah, right. There are many Isra essays that are constantly. It's an Isra essay, not a constant essay.
Hate on me for being like not knowledgeable, but I have no clue of any of this.
Anyway, okay, so so the Minchas Chinuch says that the Rambam holds that there's an Isser to eat a human being, and therefore the Shita, so the Rambam would hold that there is no Gid HaNasha by a human being. There's a kasha that developed asked on the Minchas Chinuch as follows: that if you look in the Rashba, there's two svaras the Rashba says why there is a lav of Gid HaNasha by a human being. Number one, he says because you can eat human beings. Number two, he says because the whole Meiser was with the human being. So when the Gemara is darshaning that it's only for a behemoth tahara, that's for animals that are the extension of the story. But the person, the way it happened with Yaakov Avinu, the Baal Hamaisa has to apply to the human being. So even if a human being would be Asher B'Achila, Afal Pikin, the drush will not apply. The drush is only for animals that are extension of the thing. A human that the story happened to, it has to be that there's an Isser Gid HaNasha. So the Rashba says that's one of the reasons why it paskins that there's a Gid HaNasha.
Wouldn't it be safe to say though that by the time you're eating a human, probably it's cool of an action and it doesn't matter anyway?
Nope.
That could be, but let's say you're not. Let's say not.
Let's say not.
This is Minchas Chinuch. We don't ask it.
Last piece of meat.
No, but then you
No.
Alright, let's say not.
I'm
You're just a
cannibal.
cannibal.
I'm cannibal. Now, do I get this many lavim or that many lavim? We have a thing in the, like if we eat
Don't cook them on Shabbos.
right, right.
Or what do you mean? What about your case? You have to eat a treifa animal, or you have to eat a human Gid HaNasha. What do you do? If it's a lav, then it's the same thing.
Right. Well,
Okay.
there's
The reason.
more love there, love and treifa, though.
Why? What else?
It's just one love, no.
What else is there?
I don't think about it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So okay, there. So the question on Minchas Chinuch is, why is he saying the Rambam would not hold like the Rashba? Because the Rambam holds that a human is also to eat. What happened? What happened to the fact that what happened to the other Rashba's other svara that it happened to a human being? It has to apply to a human being. It's a good question. I heard a svara from Rabbi Moshe Aaron Friedman. It's a nice svara. He wanted to say that maybe the Rambam l'shitaser. Meaning the Rash was saying what? That since the Maisa happened to a human being, it applies. The Rambam's way of learning the Rabbanan Shita and Chulin is that there's a new mitzvah at Sinai. Moshe Rabbeinu gave the original mitzvah is great until our Sinai. But now Moshe Rabbeinu gave a new mitzvah of Gid Hanasha, and that's why we keep mitzvahs. So maybe the Minchas Chinuch held that in the Rambam Shita the Rashba Svara wouldn't apply. What's the Rashba saying? Since the story happened to a human being, it has to be that Gid Hanasha applies to a human being. That's great if Al Kain Lo Yochel Neso as Gid Hanasha is a direct consequence of the story. But the Rambam's way of learning the Mishnah on Chulin is that we keep mitzvahs because of Moshe Rabbeinu, nothing to do with the story, because Moshe Rabbeinu said it. So then we keep mitzvahs based on pasuk in the Torah. What does the pasuk say? Don't eat the Gid Hanasha, but you can eat the rest of the thing. So in the Rambam's world, the only way for someone to say that there's an Isser Gid Hanasha on a human being is if it was mutter to eat a human being. Meaning, in the Rashba, in a different world where we're keeping Gid Hanasha because of the story that happened to Yaakov, Al Kain Lo Yochel Neso as Gid Hanasha as a direct consequence of that story, then the Rashba Svara makes a lot of sense. Besides for the fact that it might be mutter to eat a human being, there is also an additional Svara that the story happened to a human being, and that's why we're not eating Gid Hanasha. So it has to be it applies to a human being. But in the Rambam's world that we eat Gid Hanasha, we don't eat Gid Hanasha nowadays, not because of the story of Yaakov, because Moshe Rabbeinu cited it out of Sinai. Then that svara doesn't really apply anymore of what happened to Yaakov. The only thing that applies is the pasuk. So the pasuk says that you can't eat the Gid Hanasha. We have a drasha from there. You could eat the rest of the animal or the rest of the human. In the Rambam's world, where you can't eat the rest of the human, you can't. Then there's no Isser Gid Hanasha, and the Minchas Chinuch svara is glad. Nice svara. I'll throw it out there. Okay. Next, moving on here in the Minchas Chinuch by
So how
Gid
does the
Hanasha.
Rambam explain the Al Kain? I think because happens to be this
So
is the reason.
that's why I don't love this svara, because even like the Rambam, I think at the end of the day, the Torah
says Al Kain.
it's not right. The Torah does say Al Kain. He's just saying that
The Al Kain can be
part of what Moshe said also.
Part of the story.
The Al Kain can
But-
be what the Gemara said that it was said by Sinai, but it came from the story of Yaakov. Al Kain because the Rambam holds that Yaakov brought Gid Hanasha was
Right, so I'm saying, so-
because of Yaakov we had Gid Hanasha.
So I'm saying, so the point is, even like the Rambam, it's not completely separated. It's not like Yaakov did one thing and now we're totally doing our own thing. There is a hemshech. It's true. It's a separate tzivur, and that's why we keep. You want to know? You ask your kid asks you at the table, why do we not get an usher? Because Moshe Rabbeinu told us not to get an usher. Right? That's what you say according to the Rambam.
And
But
why
the
did
pasuk,
Moshe-
what did
why
Moshe
did
say?
Moshe-
Moshe said, "Okay, let's get an usher." Right? They told you know.
I would say that a lot of mitzvahs you have that. For example, why do we have Pesach? Because we left.
Right.
Why do you have Shabbos?
Right.
It's because Hashem Hashem said, but also we're trying to emulate Hashem that he was Shabbos and
Right.
Like all these things.
So right, that's the same point we're making. That it's still connected. So it's still connected to the story. So the Rashba Svara could still. I hear it a little bit. Okay, Lamaisa, there's a new commandment. There's a new mitzvah. So okay, so maybe as far as like lumdus is concerned, it's separated, and you don't go as far as Rashba saying, since it was part of human. The story happened with the human. But it's somewhere in the middle. There's a connection between the actual story and the reason why Moshe said it, but maybe it's not as connected. So maybe the svara doesn't apply. Okay, it's B'taras Efshar, I would say. Moving on. So there's another fascinating Rambam. The Rambam paskins that if someone eats the Gid Hanasha of a chazer, just the Gid Hanasha, nothing else. So the Rambam is of the opinion, it's Shayla had to learn a b'suga, complex suga in Chulin. The Rambam is of the opinion that there's a klal of ein beginning b'nais and tam. That Gid Hanasha has no tam, and therefore if you want to know, if you cook it in a larger piece of meat, how much you need to be mavato the Gid Hanasha, let's say you cooked it and then removed the Gid Hanasha. So, but now the Gid Hanasha has maybe given off tam throughout this piece of meat. So is that a problem? Not. The Rambam holds ein beginning b'nais and tam. That's what we paskin, and there's no tam from the Gid Hanasha, and therefore number one, it doesn't give off tam into the larger piece of meat. But more than that, also, if you just eat a Gid Hanasha, the Rambam paskins, you're not eating any. You're not doing a ma'aseh achila because there's no tam. It's not considered a ma'achil. It's not considered an achila at all. Therefore, the Rambam paskins, if someone takes the Gid Hanasha of a chazer and eats it, you're not chayiv anything. You're pater from everything. You're pater al chazer because there's no tam, so you're not eating treifa meat, and you're pater al giranasha because it's a treifa animal, so there's no lava of giranasha. What?
This is not only on Tom,
What do you mean?
treifa, or not, or
And the Rambam say if there's no tam in it, that you will not be over for eating the treifa animal. It's like eating atzomas. It's like eating bones. You're not over allowed to eat the bones.
Why are you over feeding the good?
The Rambam's saying you're not.
In general?
You are not if you take the gid. Oh, what do you mean?
Ever.
Oh, that's because the Torah said exer sekosef, don't eat a gid on
It's
asha.
not chilul.
But so the Torah was magala that when there's an isser gid on asha, we consider it to be achila. But if there's no isser, if not for the lav of gid on asha, the Torah is saying basically there's a new category here. Achila's gid on asha, we're telling you is something you're not allowed to do.
if you rather determine.
Taste, no taste, doesn't matter.
Right. What?
The person has to be rather determined to get into that circumstance in the first place.
100%. We're not talking. That's not what we're discussing. Right.
No, then you're having issues with the meat also.
You're just eating the gid. Yes.
I mean,
Uh,
expert
He needs the nutrients.
Yeah.
whatever.
We're just having fun here.
Clearly.
We're just here to have fun. Let's go. So that's what the Rambam says. But
Think tank ever.
Huh?
We're just a think tank here. This is the worst think tank ever.
Okay, moving. Oh, but there's another Rambam. The Rambam says if you eat the gid hanasha, just the gid hanasha of a nevela, right, an animal that was mutter b'achila, but it became a nevela, wasn't shechted properly. So at the Rambam, you're chayav twice. You're chayav for the lav of gid hanasha because it's a kosher animal. So there's no miyat. It's a kosher animal, and now you become chayav for nevela. You become chayav for achilas nevela, which is a pella. You hear the pella?
Where's the achila of nevela? Because it's not an achila.
That's the question. If the Rambam said by chazra that's not an achilas, you're not chayiv either. How by nevela you chayiv too? It makes no sense. All right, you heard this?
Right, yeah, because it's no. Right, okay.
If there's no time, so fine. You want to say chayiv gid hanasha? This is Kasha Minchas Chinuch brings, and he's been saying says look in mitzvah reish pe'al. From there he says two ways to answer kasha that are very similar, but they're different b'yesaidim. The first answer he brings from Gedolei Achronim is based on a rule that they say it's a principle called achshavei, but it's a unique type of achshavei. Achshavei means that you're machshav something through something you do. So let's say a classic case of it, a classic example of it are by certain isurim. Let's say something. Let's say you eat a piece of meat that's not fit for human consumption. It's disgusting. But it could be by the very fact that you eat it, you're being machshav it as an achila. So it could be that gufa causes you to be over in Isra Achila because now you're eating, you're being machshav. Now that's not true. What I just said. I guess. No, we'll talk about something that's like literally like nothing. Now, what I just said is not true, at least midiraisa. Midirabanan, there's a klal, but the overall rule, just because you ate it, is not true. Maybe you're just, I don't know, you're a crazy person. You think it doesn't mean you have to be machshav as achila.
More than once.
No. Not as far as necessarily the one this would be concerned, but it's either way, it's not true. But the Gedolei Achronim say like this: if the Torah is machshav as an achila, the Torah says al kain lo yachlu bnei Yisrael as a gid hanasha, then it's an achshavei even midiraisa. The Torah said it's an achila eating a gid hanasha. So whenever you're being over the lav of achilas gid hanasha, it's now an achila and you're chayav for eating the veil as well. When it's a chazer and you're not over gid hanasha, it's now in beginning of time. It's nothing. We don't know about the gid hanasha of a chazer, what its status is. We know it has no time. You're not over chazer and you're not over gid hanasha either because it has no time. But once you're over for eating gid hanasha of a nevela, now it becomes achila. You're over for the gid hanasha. It becomes an achila. You're over for nevela as well. That's what certain achronim want to say.
I don't understand that. But separate question.
Okay.
With that, like.
The Torah said it's your eating.
How do we know we has no time?
That's the Gemara says.
We took people's.
That's what Chazal say. Amunas Chachamim.
Okay, but the Torah is now saying that it's machshav as a thing.
If it's a love, not that. That's not telling you the mitzias of a gid hanasha as an achila. When you're being over the lav of gid hanasha, we are considering it an achila. That's what the Torah did. We consider it like an achila, even though the klal is normally. And begin nice in time, and it's not considered achila. Insofar as you're being over the lav of gid hanasha, we consider it to be an achila, and therefore now it would be an achila for the veil as well.
You use that for even not kosher animals. Like, why is that?
But that thing is that's exactly what I say. It's not being megala on gid hanasha that it is something. It's just saying that insofar as there is a lav in the Torah of gid hanasha, it's now considered an achila. So only when there is actually the lav midaraisa of Gidon Asher.
Niche. Like it's saying more than this and less than that, but it's like really stopping right there. It's a very tight window
Yeah, it's a tight window, man.
that it put itself in.
It's a tight window.
Yeah.
80%
80% completion rate. Like I'm saying,
Yeah,
no, but I'm
it's,
saying like, it's saying that it is an achila, but
0.01.
achila has to be considered achila. Like,
Yeah.
but it's
I don't have
not-
anything
it's not
else
giving
to
more, like,
to say.
giving
He
more
says maybe
information.
like the Minchas Chinuch Svar a little better. He says like this. He says, why isn't it taka true? Every time a guy eats something, he's machshir as an achila. So he says because maybe he brings this from Iran. I believe it's in the Dorm. He says as follows. Let's try to keep these cases straight, although I'm getting tight on time here, but let's try to keep... There's a couple cases like this. I need them straight in my head for my own self, but let's try to get them out clearly. If a guy makes a shua that I will eat, that I will not eat this thing, right? And then goes and eat, let's say says I'm not going to eat meat. And then he goes and eats meat, Shaloi k'derech achila. Puts in tons of salt, whatever. It makes it disgusting. And eats it shaloi k'derech achila. He's not over his shua because he ate it shaloi k'derech achila. He didn't eat it. The rule is when he said, "I'm not going to eat the piece of meat," he has to eat it k'derech achila. But if he made a shua that yesterday I didn't eat meat, and yesterday he ate meat this way, he is over his shua. What's the difference? The Ran says as follows. He says because when the guy Taka went and ate the piece of meat yesterday, before he ever made the shvua, he was machshav it as an achila by eating it. He sat down and he ate this piece of meat. He thought it was delicious, even though it was absolutely disgusting and inedible. Right? So he sat down and just ate a piece of meat, and then only the next day made the shvua. He's over his shvua. But when a guy makes a shvua that I'm not going to eat the piece of meat, and then goes and eats it in such a way, he ate it in such a way, goofa not to be over his shvua, he's not machshav as an achila. So if he has in mind, once the shvua is in place,
it's not loy b'derech hateva.
No, but the point is, he's saying it is shaloi k'derech hateva for it. It doesn't have to be shaloi k'derech hateva. It doesn't have to be unnatural. It has to be that it's not.
For him, it's
It has to be no. It doesn't have to be.
He just did it.
No, it doesn't. That's not the point. It has to be not considered an achila. So it could be even for him, it's not considered an achila. It's absolutely disgusting. He did it for $10,000, whatever reason. Right? It was absolutely disgusting. It wasn't an achila. But the point is saying that he did it. Right now, so why did he do it then? Because he did it in such a way not to be over his shvua. He dafka did it in such a way not to be over his shvua. When he did it yesterday before he did his shvua, he can't say that. He hadn't made the shvua yet. So therefore, he was machshav it as an achila. So the Minchas Chinuch just uses this rhyme and says, therefore, what do I see from this? I see that normally you are machshav by eating something. You are machshav it as an achila, and the only reason why it wouldn't be true is if you dafka ate it in order not to be over the isser. If you dafka ate it in order not to be over your shvua in such a strange way, then we don't see an achshaveh. We don't see you being machshaveh. You dafka ate it in such a way not to be over your shvua. You're not machshaveh. If you have no excuse why you ate it that way, you are machshaveh as achila, and it becomes an achila. Zoktim in Minchas Chinuch, when you eat nevela, you're being over the lav of nevela. You're being over the lav of hanשה anyway. So you can't say I ate the nevela. I ate something that was eino b'nois and tam. So it's not an achila. But the fact is, you were machshav as an achila by eating it. What are you going to say? No, I dafka ate the hanשה of this nevela because I didn't want to be over the lav of nevela. You're over the lav of hanשה anyway. So once you're being over the lav of hanשה anyway, you no longer have that logic that a person wants to say. I'm going to tell you, oh, you ate a nevela that doesn't have tam, so it's not an achila. So we'll tell you, but what do you mean? You were machshav by eating it. The very fact you ate it should give it chashivas shel achila. You say no, I ate something that has no chashivas of achila because I didn't want to be over the isser. But you were over this in nevela anyway. So once you're over this in nevela anyway, you lose that. And now, you're over this gid hanשה anyway. Once you're being over the gid in this maisa, then memela we say that you're being machshav the achila by eating the nevela. What do you hold to that? 10, 9, 7. Think of it.
Say a different svar that when something's in the past